Let's try again. And here we are,
Hi,
another
Troy.
episode. Hi, Danny. Welcome everybody to the next episode of the Danny and Troy Show. And we've got more creative writing experience and examples, as well as the story that's developing. That we're still in the flowing stage of letting things come out from Danny's imagination and thoughts and expressions. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next adventures of Drukbar and the developing story. So over to you, Danny.
Thank you. The Divine Madman, right?
Exactly.
And it's called Tales of the Kraken, right? And I think, Troy, I was going to suggest we change the name of the show to like the Dog and Pony Show. What do you think?
It's fine with me.
Yeah, fine with you. Let's see. Who's the dog and who's the pony?
Can one be a donkey? Oh, the dog and donkey.
Yeah, we can let the audience pin the tail on the donkey. Just for fun. Okay, this is stream of consciousness, of course, with a certain kind of an awareness of, as the author, of what's going on, avoiding editorial comments from the author himself while he's in the creative mode.
Right.
So we're talking about Drukpa, our hero, the Divine Madman, and his search for an answer on how to accomplish his purpose or objective in life, which is to control all the money in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see in this episode where he goes. Here we go. Ready?
Great. Ready.
Okay. He was the hamster in the wheel. Without him, there would be no spinning. The life of an incidental. Life in a petri dish. The message from the voices was that he turned down the Zazen approach because of his inability to sit still. His forward thrust was to, like a shark, keep moving. He wasn't as wandering and wall-eyed as a shark, but they did have things in common. As a professional courtesy, sharks did not attack other sharks. There was some recognition factor that was achieved at a glance. No close examination was required. One might near another, but there was no snuggling, spooning, or cozying up. There was acceptance of one's limitations without remorse or feelings of being ostracized. Sharks were loners, born to consume without the lower level thoughtfulness of others that were prey. Being a shark was exclusive positioning, no begging. He owed that to evolution, of which he was not respectful. If there was any evidence of it, he was a contributor based on the same principles as lips, tigers, and bears. Stragglers were eaten like the guys behind the elephants. Okay, so it wasn't prime cuts. Who cares? People hated sharks. Sharks hated people. No need for the Department of Social Services. Childcare was very simple for sharks. Eat them. Shock was an accompaniment with sharks. Swimmers, goners. Divers, like shelling a peanut. Is that what he had become? If it were pleasant? Zazenites, like pretzels. So he asked himself, where is all of this going? from a wandering fool to a troubadour, what's the difference? And back again, following the mythology provided him, he was visibly tiring. There was that infernal question again, leave me alone, he shouted. Stop telling me what I must do, what I must think. He was in torment. Do this, don't do that. Born into slavery. What he needed was a way to deconstruct his mind, not ignore it, not give into some better way. These were just ways that some other guy assembled as part of his own way of profiting off of others. His Russian friend said that the Great Patriotic War was caused by a division of those in Germany between those who produced something and those who produced nothing, the intelligentsia. The effects in Russia of the First World War was that which materialized Russia. The women became accustomed to the maimed and crippled men returning from the war and became less sensitive of handsome men for the soulful ones. Women took over the duties of men and ran the country. After perestroika, men who had become drunks as a result of being displaced, emasculated, in their own society by World War I, Stalin, the Great Patriotic War, and third stage socialism, communism was never achieved, reasserted their power and presence by turning to gangs and mafia, territorialism, and the like. Drukpa had never become accustomed to women in politics because they could not make pragmatic decisions simply because of their maternal instincts. Everything became tiered down and less divisive. The powers that be, whether good or bad, nothing is born good or bad, it is us that makes it so, had fashioned the world in an aggressive stance, and men as such weathered as much as they could before becoming obsessed with compassion, Woody Allen prototypes, and near men. Men eventually turned to war, crime, which is acting against the law and being caught, see Sparta for reference, and allowing themselves to be subjected to some external objective power or some other militant profession whereby they exercised authority with sanctioning of and by the state that subsumed the right of revenge by and through laws, suggestions, and a power-based enforcement of aggressive types. Men became worms. No woman wanted a worm in her bed. Woody Allen was the most disgusting representative of manhood ever imagined, that glorified the Semitic race of men as secular masculinity as much as any LGBT plus assignment of it by understanding it as interpretive. Sexuality had become a mathematical formula instead of a binary function, a menial task on a sliding scale determined by a lack of participation by one in exerting some primitive energy that remained uncorralled and dysfunctional in a modern world of set Western values that corrupted every veteran in the sense of understanding in and out of context world. So his choice of being a shark required him to live his life, the life he would decide for himself, which is to say, his principle of there is no external authority. Number two, freedom is fundamental, even before God or Buddha, for if it had not been so, was not so, God himself would not have had the freedom to create. Third, he ignored Nietzsche's duality of master-slave and introduced free man as the necessary mediating third element where there was no resentment or blame, which only served to give away his power. Nietzsche's revalue all values was spinning like a tornado in his brain. As we have seen, objects were flying around like in the Wizard of Oz. Grabbing even one was almost as impossible as catching a skydiver. He was a displaced person because he went his own way. How long he was able to survive was up to him. The fleas that were on him were all of the hidden bullshit that trailed him from the lifestyles he was introduced to after birth. Post-war mother forced to live in the rural South with a country boy. She wept on the doorstep for 4 years before going to work at a textile plant. This fucking country could easily have brought a better life to millions instead of piping it abroad. Keep them poor. And I'll stop there because it's a good place to go from this notion to introducing the concept of the World Economic Forum.
Okay.
So there you have it.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
Impressions are welcome if you have any. If you don't worry about it. We're going to continue to write anyway.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I mean, I'm thinking of this because based on the title of being the Kraken, how that's going to come into play.
Put that mic up close to your.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go. Much better.
So how the Kraken comes into play. Now I can see this shark and groups of sharks and everything in the ocean. That analogy and image of this huge octopus devouring and how it kind of comes in. That's intriguing. That sparked my curiosity right now. So looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, it's really hard. I'm putting you, of course, on the carpet here, trying to make sense out of these little bits and pieces.
Sure.
And you've been a follower since we started this thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's getting to the point that I can see, based on your reaction and your comments, that, and I feel this as a writer as well, whether I'm right or not, because as a writer, I'm always right. Right.
Sure.
I can't question myself, even though I do, silently, as to what I'm doing, and how I'm doing it. But that's where I learned to trust myself.
Yeah.
That, if I get into it, part of my job then is getting out of it.
Okay.
And and getting some kind of a medal or whatever, for being able to accomplish that task, because that's really, from my understanding, how life is, right?
Exactly.
You can't always take the right steps. It's
Sure.
just not allowed. That you're going to get yourself in trouble, and if that's not enough, then other people are going to get you in trouble too. And one last comment is that I try to do that with brevity. So we're between letting the information flow out, and brevity may actually be in the realm of editing,
right?
Which I don't mind. I remember I met an old girlfriend from New York in LA when I was there, and I was reading stuff I was writing, to her, because she always admired the way I write, and I would, I don't know, segue, I guess is the best word for it, go off in a direction. And that's when I would lose the reader.
Okay.
And she said, well, here's what you need to do, take this out or whatever. And, that brings to mind the words of a drama professor one time who said, cut those golden words. Everything we create, right, when we're writing, whether it's a play or a novel or whatever, they came out of your head, and they're all precious because we understand what's happening. But the question is, how well have we translated through use of our words even though we may not know where we're going,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the editorial process would come in, where we start saying it should be more clear,
Sure.
so that any editor in the future might say, we can just lose page 41. What? It's like, yeah, it's okay, because they got to keep the story tight. But then again, one last comment is creating and editing are two different heads,
Yeah.
right? And
Well,
you don't want to get, or you'll just destroy the process by,
exactly.
through self-criticism or self-editing.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, I see it, I mean, as I always do, in the context of data science. So what we're in, your flow mode is actually data collection. So data's
Ah,
being documented. We've got, recordings happening. You've got paper words going down. And yeah, it's just
mm,
data, these words. And as a data scientist, you don't want to say, oh, that word's not allowed, or that piece of data shouldn't come in, or, it should be as open as free. And the more data you have, the better in most cases. So then once you kind of get to a point, say, okay, yep, we've got the data, and the data collection can be ongoing, and you can start the organization. So the second step
right.
is, yeah, putting it to so collection, organizing, um, and then or packaging. That's where, as a data scientist, you say, well, this is required, or this kind of is interesting. Let's explore that more. And why you do that is for the next level, which is the delivery. So you want to know, okay, are we going to deliver this to? Well, you can start with age brackets. So you say, okay, this is going to be something for 2 to 10-year-olds. Then that kind
Yep.
of works back to say, okay, how are we going to organize this? What are we going to include? What are we going to analyze? Or it may even go further down and say, oh, we need more data because we're wanting to target this, sector of people or interest, or have a certain image. So then you say, have we got the data for that? Can we organize it in a way? Oh, yep, we do.
Uh,
Or maybe we don't. Let's get some more data. We've slotted in. And that's how it fits. And that's how I'm seeing it play out as a data
that's very
scientist.
comforting comment. That relationship that you just described from, what as a viewer or as an auditor, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're listening to and qualifying and classifying this drivel that Drupa is going through, which for him is very necessary, can be categorized as data collection, right?
That's right. That's right.
Or intel or whatever it is you want.
Yeah.
And, I know from my own experience that, if I'm reading, I think I skipped over like half of War and Peace, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't interesting, or other
Mm-hmm.
books
Mm-hmm.
that I've read.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, let's get back to the action. And then later on, since some of the great authors have done that, it comforts me in knowing that once you skip the battle scene, right, Borodino's battle scene, and you go on to what happens afterwards, and they make references to what happened in the battle, then I have an incentive to go back and read that section of what happened during the battle
Sure.
with actually, a more intense interest than I
That's right.
had in the beginning. But, Tolstoy's not perfect,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
not at all. I
But
think
yeah.
actually his wife was very important because he would just sit there and write,
Mm-hmm.
and then nobody could read his handwriting but his wife. And she's the one who actually compiled all of this, writing that he was doing
Right.
and putting it into form and edited it.
Right.
So, Mrs. Tolstoy actually deserves a greater portion or a great portion of the credit for us having, books that are published and remembered and thought very highly of. So
Sure.
it's not always one person, never. I don't know. No man is an island, as the saying goes,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because they're going to be crabs, they're going to be penguins, maybe, on the
Sure.
same island that add to the richness of life.
Sure.
Better shut up. Okay, that does it. Great. Thank you,
Okay.
Troy.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll do another one tomorrow as I clean this up. Because I
Okay.
actually am very proud of the fact that we're actually getting somewhere. You don't know that from what I read, but he's obviously tiring himself out
Okay.
and searching for an answer, and having painted himself into a corner on a number of different occasions
Hmm.
with no way out, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
then he has to be extremely creative in where he's going, because not only are we are lost because he is lost,
Yep.
right?
Right.
And we only want to relate to that marginally.
Well, yeah, from my side, I mean, the more data we have, the collection process that we're in right now, the free flowing nature of
Mm,
creative writing that we're talking about, yeah, the more the better. And but yeah, when we see that it is the stage where we going into organizing that information, packaging it in
mm.
certain ways, then it comes an interesting process as well.
Well, let's hope it maintains that.
I'm sure it
Okay.
will. Okay.
Okay. Until
Yeah.
tomorrow, then.
Until tomorrow.
Okay.
Thanks, Danny.
I'll hang around because I want to chat with you for just a second after
Okay.
we're off the air.
Great.
Thank you, everybody.